Well, my name is Joe Galbo, and I have the privilege of chairing the Meadville Area Memorial Day Observance Committee. Memorial Day has been celebrated in Meadville, obviously, for years since the formal organizations of those types of events. About 1979, Ben Maselli, who was with the Kiwanis here in Meadville, they attended a national convention. And at that convention, they talked about the importance of establishing Memorial Day as a means for the community to come together to give tribute to those that had paid the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of their country. And so at that time, they organized the first combined organization featuring all the fraternal military organizations. The schools had bands there and what have you. And that's the genesis of what we have today. It was in 1979. And Mr. Maselli was chair of the organization for a long period of time. And then he passed the baton to John Lehman, who did a wonderful job. And then John did me the honor, asked me to take over a number of years ago. And so from that standpoint, I continue that. So what we have is the observance today, and as an adjunct committee of the city of Meadville, goes back to 1979 and the work of the Kiwanis, and specifically Ben Maselli. My dad served in World War II, and it was something that I took him to his 50th anniversary in the early 90s. And I noticed that these are gentlemen that were in their 70s and weren't very many of them there. And I thought, well, 70, that seems pretty young. What I found out from relatives after my dad passed is a good portion of that unit never came back. They dropped them, these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids off in the jungles of China, Burma, and India. And they came back 2 years later to get whoever was left. So from that standpoint, for my dad, and my dad would go, and then he got to the point that he was having trouble being able to physically be able to attend. And then my father-in-law was around the same age, and he was on the boat he was ready to go over, he was the next wave going in at Iwo Jima before we finally took that. So from this standpoint, for them, I felt the need to be able to do something for that. And again, I was approached by the committee to go and help them. And then consequently, my son had two tours over in Iraq, and on Memorial Day, he lost one of his closest friends in the unit. So Memorial Day has a very special meaning in my household, and I think that for the community at large, wanting to be able to remember those that paid the ultimate sacrifice and be able to help those to commemorate their brothers and sisters. Well, the observance and the parade, and the big thing with it is the fact that we start in January, and there's a lot of moving parts to it. For something that the parade starts at 10, is usually over by 10:30. The solemn observance starts at 11. But we have the various members of the committee, a lot of them attached to the military organizations like Post 52, the Vietnam Vets, American Legion, VFW 2006. And we meet at the VFW and go over the various components of who's going to be organizing the parade, who we have our guest speaker and grand marshal each year, and it's usually somebody that has an attachment to the military. And so from that standpoint, we, from January until May, are organizing all these various aspects of it. Also, we're privileged over the last few years to have Donnie Zarembinski, who served, who is a wonderful local musician, who does the national anthem and also performs music between the parade and the solemn observance at this point. So organizing all of those things takes from about January on to make it all work, and we're proud of how it does work. During the observance, we have a ritual that goes back to probably about 1979. And what it does is that we recognize, and there are chaplains and prayers that are part of it, that are really kind of part of the ritual across the country, that takes a time to remember those that paid the ultimate sacrifice. And then we have, usually the bands are there, and we've been so fortunate to have people like Irene Kipp and Scott Kresley and now Armand Walter, who understand the commitment that the students should have to understanding those that paid the ultimate sacrifice and give up their day off from school to be part of this. And so they perform wonderful numbers during the observance itself. And as I had said, the guest speakers are able to impart their thoughts, oftentimes of individuals that they lost during the active combat years that they saw. And then we have the Gettysburg Address and we have Flanders Fields. So those are, with regard to that, as I said, we have all of those things. We have a ritual that really doesn't change an awful lot. And then the observance concludes with the raising of the flag from half-staff to full. Because one thing about the veterans, and I knew people that have been involved with this committee for a long period of time, and the veterans as a whole, they just ask for an hour. They just really ask for an hour for people just to kind of stop what they're doing a little bit and just to kind of remember all the things that they have and who paid the price for that. And then when that flag goes up, have every picnic you have. My son has a picnic every year in honor of his friend because that's what his friend would have wanted. And so that's what we do. That's what we do.